walking past speeding cars, hats pulled down and collars up against the rain. A short silver pistol tucked up his sleeve and a cigarette burned down to his knuckles. It should have happened there and been handled by them. Not in rural Minnesota, where nothing ever happened but more of the same. And not handled by my dad and our nearing retirement public defender. Not handled, unbelievably, by me. Michael Jensen, 17-year-old nobody from nowhere, who wanted to be a journalist someday but hadn't gotten further than delivering papers. Unqualified, untested. Take your pick of descriptors that mean a kid in over his head. But sometimes the story chooses the writer, not the other way around. Or so says my mentor, Matt McBride. He's the editor of our local Black Deer Falls Star. And in this case, it's especially true. Marie Catherine Hale chose me to tell her story, me to hear it, when she could have had anyone, and I do mean anyone. Edward R. Murrow himself would have made the flight out. So this is that story, her story, taken down in the pages that follow. When we found her that night in the middle of all those bodies, I didn't know who she was. I thought she was a victim. Then I thought she was a monster. I thought her innocent. I thought her guilty. By the time she was finished, what she told me would change the way I thought. Not just about her, but about the truth. Tell the truth and shame the devil. I always thought that would be easy. But what do you do when the truth that you're faced with also happens to be impossible? Chapter 2. The Night of the Murders. The night that the Carlsons were killed, I was over at my best friend Percy's place. It was a warmish night for September, and we'd gone out to their falling-down barn so Percy could grab a smoke without catching a glare from his stepmom, Jeannie. "So, what do you want to do?" Percy asked. Then he answered his own question as he stamped out his ashes to make sure he wouldn't start a fire in the old hay. "Not much to do." "Never much to do," I said. I turned around in the barn and picked through one of his dad's piles of junk. "Beats doing homework." "I guess." I held up what looked to be a very old and half-empty can of motor oil. "Where does your dad get this stuff?" "Wherever he can," Percy replied. Most of the barn was full of junk that Percy's dad, Mo, had picked up at auctions or off the side of the road or taken off the hands of neighbors. Everyone in town knew that if you had garbage, you took it to Mo Valentine before you took it to the dump. The Valentine house was a farmhouse, like most others that sat outside town. But it wasn't a farm. It hadn't been a farm in a long time, though they did have one cornfield rented out for someone else to till. The rest had been sold off or turned to swamp or let go back to forests that made for good deer and squirrel hunting. "I swear, he's got some kind of disease," Percy said, "that makes him see worth where there isn't any. Like a fool's gold disease?" "Yeah, exactly. My old man has fool's gold disease." "Did you just make that up?" I shrugged. Maybe I hadn't. It seemed like something that might really exist. I stuck my head out through the door and looked at the house. Jeannie was still up. I could see her sitting in the living room paging through a magazine. I wanted to go back inside. Jeannie was nice and even pretty, but Percy hadn't warmed up. She was Mo's third wife, which meant he'd had 2 more wives than most any man in town, and Percy's heart was rough now when it came to mothers, after his own ran off and another had divorced Mo and moved across town to pretend like the Valentines had never existed. "You asked anybody to homecoming yet?" Percy asked. "I heard Joy Davis say she wouldn't mind going with a certain sheriff's son." "How'd you hear that? Or did you just ask her for me?" He grinned. "Thanks, Perce, but I can get my own dates." "It hasn't looked like it lately, and now that Carol's stepping out with John Murphy." "What does that matter?" "John Murphy is a senior. He's the football captain. Now that he's got your old girl, you've got to—" "Why do I have to?" I asked. "It's not like I can do any better than Carol anyway." Carol Lilligraf and I dated for almost 3 months last spring. She was the dream girl. Long blonde hair, red lips, long-legged and tall. And dating me was a calculated move. Going out